Welcome to Movies We Love Recapped. Today we will explore a 2021 psychological thriller entitled Broadcast Signal Intrusion. Spoilers ahead. Before we start, hit the like button. It's free and will help me to grow this channel. Stick around to the very end and I'll give you my own insights into this surreal thriller. Here we go. The film is set in Chicago during the year 1999, and we are introduced to James, a lonely man who works nights archiving television footage for a local television station. Some nights he has disturbing dreams. In 1996, James's wife went missing, and he misses her terribly. It seems that James never found out what happened to his wife because her car was found empty on a bridge. Law enforcement never found her body, so he was left to assume she committed suicide, never learning the reason why. One night, as James is converting videos to DVD, he is watching an old news broadcast from 1987 and sees that it is interrupted by an odd broadcast, a BSI, or Broadcast Signal Intrusion. A person with a creepy mask appears before the screen. They seem to be speaking, but the speech is garbled, and several beeps and screeches are heard. James isn't sure what to make of this broadcast. It sets to find out if anyone else knows anything about it. James learns about a second 1987 BSI that interrupted a rerun of the Sci-Fi show Don Kronos. He tries to find the station's copy of the broadcast, but it's missing. He then inquires from his boss, but discovers that the FCC seized it years ago. From a payphone, James calls another archive and discovers that not only is their copy of the BSI also missing, but the FBI is supposed to be notified of anyone inquiring about it. James immediately hangs up. He then notices a young woman in a hoodie watching him from across the street. Chester, an underground videophile who uses James for camera repair, provides James with a copy of the second BSI. The strange footage again features someone in a wig and white mask. Chester refers to the two BSIs as the Sal E. Sparks incident, which got its name because the broadcast pirate's disguise was modeled after a character from the fictional sitcom Stepbot, in which a widow created an android to care for his 5 children. James digs into the BSIs on BBS message boards for conspiracy theorists. His research identifies a report on the incidents written by former FCC Bureau Chief Dr. Stuart Lithgow. James visits Dr. Lithgow, who tells James he does not have a copy of his report. However, Lithgow mentions several rumors surrounding the case, including that the footage supposedly contains a subliminal message and that there may have been a third Sal E. Sparks intrusion on cable access on November 23, 1996. He notes that this date is one day after his wife Hannah disappeared and presumably died. Lithgow remarks that the FBI ultimately closed the case as an unsolved mystery. James becomes obsessed with the BSI footage as he continues to suspect he is being followed. Upon closely examining audio from one of the tapes, he believes he hears the masked person say, "I fixed them all." James brings his research back to Dr. Lithgow. He shows Lithgow that the footage was shot on a built movie set, and a man's face can be seen reflected in a window. He insists that the pirate was trying to communicate a message, but Lithgow warns him against going down a rabbit hole of conspiracy theories. A couple of nights later, James is at work and is contacted in a chat room by a mysterious person who knows that he is looking for the third broadcast and the FBI file. The person tells James to meet him and they will help him to get the information he is looking for. James heads out the next day and finds that the place the person directed him to is an antique shop. He heads to the basement and finds a man who tells him he can get him the information he is looking for, but he must first deliver a package for him. Wary, James agrees to the terms. When James gets to the place, he is confronted by a crazed-looking person. The man seems mentally unstable and asks for the package. When he opens it, he shows a note to James that tells him, "This is the man you are looking for." Confused, he presses the man for information, and the man tells him to stop looking into the mysterious broadcasts, or he will drive himself crazy. James tries to press the man to find out more, but the manic man runs off. James returns home to find the FBI report at his door. He spots the connection to the tapes, as the filmed footage on each is dated 1 day after each woman's disappearance. Could this be a coincidence? James doesn't think so, and calls Lithgow again to discuss his findings. He explains his new theory that the broadcast signal intrusions are a killer's confessions. Lithgow had carried out an investigation into the tapes himself, but after taking it to the FBI, no evidence between the tapes and the woman was ever found. James notices the hooded woman stalking him at the payphone again. The woman follows him into a bar where she identifies herself as Alice. Alice claims she only followed James as a random hobby, not for a specific reason. He and Alice commiserate about their exes over drinks and form a connection. James brings Alice back to his apartment. He wakes in the morning to find Alice watching the BSI footage. She identifies beeping noises as a phone number in Morse code. Alice bargains to translate the phone number in exchange for a temporary place to stay. James calls the number and hears a pre-recorded message with more unsettling sounds. The crazed man shows up outside the apartment building. He warns James that the missing women are a dead end, and James has to follow the tapes instead. James tries calming him as he grows increasingly agitated. Alice comes downstairs in time to witness the man slitting his own throat. Worried that they are unsafe, James and Alice flee to a motel. Alice traces the coded phone number to a storage unit in Peoria. James and Alice drive there and find only a working phone connected to an answering machine inside the unit. Facility manager Brad tells the two of them that someone has auto-paid for the unit on a standing order since 1987, but he refuses to reveal the person's identity. Brad then receives a phone call. Unexpectedly, he suddenly warms to James and Alice and tells them that the unit belongs to Stephen Meyer. James and Alice stake out Stephen Meyer's post office box. Meyer eventually shows up and the couple confronts him. Meyer has James and Alice follow him back to his house. There, Meyer explains that he was a teenage hacker, or phreaker, who helped rich classmates create the broadcast intrusions and elaborate mystery simply to mess with people. James and Alice hear odd noises upstairs that Meyer instructs them to ignore. James questions Meyer's claim that the BSIs were merely a prank. When he asks about one of the murdered women, Meyer stops talking and makes the couple leave. Back at their motel, James continues questioning Meyer's story. Alice tells him they now have an answer, and he should let it go. James says he still needs to find the third tape. James wakes in the morning to find Alice vanished with his BSI tapes. He revisits the antique store, but discovers it is boarded up. He returns home to find his place ransacked. Amongst his things, James recovers a videotape of his wife Hannah's ballet performance on public access television. The tape contains the third broadcast signal intrusion. In the footage, James sees a unique scar on the masked man's hand. With his mind unraveling, he calls Lithgow, demanding to know if the third tape is real. Lithgow only responds cryptically before the call goes dead. He re-examines the third BSI and identifies a wooded location in the background. James drives and eventually locates the remote house. James investigates the decrepit house and nervously arms himself with a large hammer. Creepy music plays in the background as he slowly explores. A man enters the house and confronts James. He notices the distinctive scar on the man's hand. When the phone suddenly rings, James attacks the man, and they wrestle. He subdues the man and takes him captive, locking him in a small cage. James shows the man the third BSI and demands to know why he made it. The man claims he wasn't responsible, and repeatedly insists James doesn't understand the whole story. He forces the man to take him to where the set used for the BSIs was located. James uses leftover props to rebuild the set. He then forces the man to wear the mask while recording him reading a confession for kidnapping and killing the 3 women. The man again pleads that nothing is what it looks like, but reads the confession under duress. After finishing the recording, when he is done, we see James bury something, most likely the man's body, and begin to drive off when he hears the phone ringing from the house. He does not go back to investigate. We then see James driving along a darkened highway. He accidentally hits something crossing the road. When he goes to investigate the body, it's a female robot. The bot begins convulsing, and spitting out black blood. Here the screen fades to black and the film ends. This film leaves many of us wondering, what is the meaning behind all the symbols? Is James psychotic? Is the whole thing just in his head? Did he actually kill his own wife? Okay, here are some of my own insights. First off, Alice the stalker wasn't real. She was a manifestation of Hannah, his deceased wife. Even in the end credits, there is no actor listed playing as Hannah, but if you look closer at the image of Hannah on the ballet tape, it's the same girl that played Alice. Also in the film, Alice mentioned she used to be with some quote-unquote abusive guy, which to me is an obvious allusion to James, who killed her, and is in denial. The ego protects itself via denial, blanking out memories and seeking alternative conclusions, all things he does in the movie to protect himself from the total psychotic collapse. The BSIs have nothing to do with any killings, it's simply his brain obsessing on it to evade admitting the truth and destroying the ego. That explains the ending, where he hits a robot woman with a car. He's reliving killing his wife. But that's just my interpretation. What do you think? Leave a comment below. Thanks for watching. If you want to see more recaps like this, hit the subscribe button.